It's Jeremy from Millionaire Migrant. I left the UK in my 20s and I traveled to many countries, 70, 80 plus countries. But I've also invested in a lot of countries in terms of real estate alone, to about 30 times in 11 countries. I also started one of the world's best known citizenship and residency businesses, which now covers all different types of immigration, including tax residency options as well. And so this video is for the purpose of telling you every single day, as much as I can, all the things I've noticed through building my net worth and be able to share with you all the tips you need for financial freedom in this year and the future. I'm going to give you my honest review of spending some time there at the end of last year. I was traveling around all of South America, but I got to spend some time in Panama. But here's just a few facts about Panama that maybe for some of you who are not so clued up or not so familiar with it, let me just bring you up to speed with a few important things. Firstly, you've got the Panama Canal, which is a major trade hub. And this is the reason why Panama also doesn't have a standing army. It's like, it doesn't matter how much of an army you have, the US is just, it's so critical to the US that the US has basically got its back. So this is something that you may or may not know about, but it makes it a huge hub for trade. And obviously any historically central location for trade, it also becomes a huge financial hub as well. So if you look at the history of the UK and you look at Hong Kong and Singapore, anywhere where there's a lot of trade coming in, obviously you start to get merchant banks, you start to get exchange houses and indices as well. And then eventually you start to have banks. Panama has got lots of banks. It's got a lot of health centers and medical centers as well. So there's a lot of medical tourism. It's a 2-hour flight from Miami. And there's a lot of similarities between Panama and Miami. I'll come to that in a bit. It's a territorial tax system as well, so that's fantastic. So you can live there and you will not get taxed on any of the money that is foreign. Any income, any wealth, or any inheritance tax, you're also good there as well. In terms of the passport itself, it gives you access to 144 countries. So you talk about UK, South Korea, Schengen as well. The one thing is that it doesn't have a citizenship by investment program. What it does have a Panama travel document program, which basically means you deposit the money in the bank account and they work back the interest that it is making to determine the amount of the deposit. So many years ago, we did this a few times. There wasn't too much demand because it's just a document that is linked to a fixed deposit and the amount of money it generates. The good thing is you can break it anytime you want, but the downside is it's not citizenship. So you're putting right now, depending on the interest rate, you could be looking at $400,000 to $500,000. But you could also do Turkey. Okay, it's not a passport, but at the same time, you take the money out after 3 years, you get your money back, plus any capital appreciation, plus any rental income. You get all your money back, and you've got that citizenship for life. Whereas with here, the long as the money's there, you got the passport. The minute you want the money back, you got to give back the passport. So just to give you some context. If, however, you want to be able to get the nationality, you just need to live there for 5 years and then you need to apply and you need to show ties to the country and you need to pass a language test. The language test is not easy, by the way. The way it is done is very strict. It's not a multiple choice. It's very tough indeed. And again, the 5 years of residency, you have to prove that you have tangible ties to that country. So what a lot of people do is that they end up getting married or having kids there, and that shows stronger ties. So I met a lot of expats that did that and they've been very successful. Well, not very successful, they got the passport. But you understand a little bit the option. It's a very powerful passport. A lot of people like it because you get the benefit of living there, getting all the tax advantages, the relatively low cost of living to, let's say, the US, which is, I mean, it's basically like Miami to a certain extent, maybe slightly lower cost and lower standard of Miami, but you get all these benefits and you get a passport that is not an American passport that will tax you for the rest of your life. It's a low cost of living, but not as low as obviously Colombia, El Salvador. So it's still relatively pricey, definitely in terms of rent, but it's politically stable and a peaceful country because, as I mentioned, the US has got its back because of its critical and strategic importance. But it's also, if I'm not mistaken, the only country that has never had any kind of revolution or civil unrest in the whole of South America. So that, for a lot of people, who gives them a lot of comfort. But it's also a pro-business, pro-entrepreneurial and pro-investment destination. You know, you've got all that banking infrastructure. It's there for a reason. In terms of the residency options, you've got permanent residency and temporary residency. So if you're looking at the permanent residency, you either have to invest in real estate of $300,000, you can do a stock market investment of $500,000, or you can do a banking investment of $750,000. You can also do the Friendly Nations visa. That's a temporary residence, and that is real estate at $200,000, so 30% less. A fixed deposit at $200,000. You need to keep it for 3 years. You also have the retirista, or the retirement and pensioners visas, which is $1,000 a month you need to demonstrate. And if you've got dependents, it's $250 for each of the dependents. You've also got another option where you could show $750 per month, but you'd have to buy a property of $100,000. But if you're going to be retiring there anyway, you need to have a property, and you might as well buy something as well. You've also got the digital nomad visa. That one you need to demonstrate $36,000, $3,000 a month in income. And then you will also need to show that you have medical insurance that is going to cover Panama. And you also need to sign a sworn declaration that you won't accept job offers in Panama. So similar to a lot of other the digital nomad visas, it's like you need to prove that you're not relying on the state, and you're not going to take our healthcare, and you're not going to get a job that a Panamanian could be getting. If you want to benefit from the tax residency, same like a lot of other countries, especially countries that are tax-free, because the rest of the world doesn't like countries that give tax residencies without showing any physical ties there for 6 months of the year. So it's 183 days a year you need to be there to qualify for the tax residency and to get your TRC, your tax residency certificate. The tax residency benefits are the following. You've got no tax on foreign income, you've got no wealth, inheritance, estate, or gift tax. You've got a low corporate tax rate of 25%, low, not for me, not that low. You've got low VAT, 7%, okay, that's not too bad. And you've got low personal income tax, which is 0 to 25% if you want to do any business in Panama itself. That's Panama in a nutshell. I'm not going to talk about Miami, so if you're more familiar with Miami, just to give you some idea. But if you want to know more information, sign up millionairemigrant.com. This is my personal business, my personal community that I'm going to build and try and give back 25 plus years of traveling the world, living in multiple countries. I calculated the other day with my wife, I realized that in the last 27 years since I left home, I've lived in 23 places. So that's 23 places in I don't know how many countries around the world. Some I was there for a month, some I was there for 6 months, some a year, and some of them I end up spending several years there. But I've also invested in these countries in multiple destinations, in multiple asset classes, and ended up building a business where I basically did it for everybody else: citizenship, residency, golden visas, tax residency, company formation. I've done over 250 companies apart from my own companies. So we're going to be telling you every single day all the options you have to basically tap into ultimate financial freedom for the future, because the world is changing. So the way it looks at Miami, what I would say is it's kind of lower cost Miami, lower quality Miami, but I don't want to upset, first of all, any Panamanians, but I also want to caveat that with saying that, like, if you do really want that Miami lifestyle, yeah, okay, you're not going to get a Carbone. There isn't a Carbone there. I saw there's a new Carbone opening in Dubai. I think it'll be a long time before you get a Carbone in Panama. But you're not going to get Finer, you're not going to get Carbone, you're not going to get a lot of those really nice things in Miami. But at the same time, you're not going to be paying what it costs in Miami, which is crazy expensive. Yes, it's 0% tax. US, Florida, 20%, not bad at all. But, and of course you can offset a lot of this, but in terms of cost of living, it's much, much lower. The rent, not so much, but food, getting around, you've got Ubers, Starbucks, you're gonna get all of that benefit, and again, 0% tax. And if you do wanna go to Miami, it's a 2-hour flight. There's hundreds of flights going every week, so you'll be fine. I think for me, what I didn't like too much is that, well, I did like Cascavieja, so I did like the old town, but it's a small old town. It's not really, it's much, much smaller than Cartagena, for example, to give you context. But what I didn't like about it is that it is so Americanized. It's like, for me, if you want to go to a foreign country, you want to get into that foreign country, you want the benefit of that foreign country. And I just didn't see it had too much of its own culture as opposed to American influence, which is normal to expect in terms of proximity. As I mentioned, the US has got it back. It's back in terms of, political and military influence. But, you've got Starbucks, everything's cold, you've got chillers, you've got, the cars that have number plates on the front, just like in the US. So it was just, for me, like very, very Americanized. The food, the 7-Elevens, and the poor quality of food we're getting from the US, which I'm glad that everyone is talking about right now, because we should have been talking about it years ago. So this, for me, was just, didn't make it too attractive for me. The other thing as well is, like, if you wanted to live there, if you really want that beach lifestyle, madly enough, like it takes you an hour and a half on the weekend to go to any of the beaches that are outside of town. And that's because of the traffic. That is for me not attractive. If you want to be living by the coast, you want to be able to go to the beach. And then other attractions, I found it was a little bit limited in what you could really do as opposed to other parts of the world, specifically in South America. So that's my honest opinion. Maybe you don't agree with me. I'm sure some of you definitely won't agree with me. I don't really take that into consideration, because ultimately I think everyone's opinion is different. But I would like to hear, because sometimes maybe your input will make me say, you know what, you're right, and I agree with you. And I'm always open to admitting that I'm wrong sometimes, and that is all part of growing and learning about the world. That's my honest opinion about Panama. Those are the residency options. Those are the tax options. If you want to talk about real estate, we'll come to that in another video. But honestly speaking, as a serious and sophisticated real estate investor that I have been in many, many different parts working in real estate, and one day I'll tell you all the different things about what I know about real estate, it's just not a market for me. I just don't see property prices going up. I don't see them going down. I don't see it as a safe haven place to kind of park your money, like I think there's other countries as well. I think there's also a little bit of outsized influence in terms of Panama being a place where Venezuelans and Colombians buy property there for the sake of living it there and not actually doing it for investment purposes, just to have the money outside. You see the same thing in Paraguay and Uruguay. People are investing there from Brazil and Argentina, not necessarily because they want to invest. It's just they just don't really care. They just want it outside the country. And I think that is something that keeps real estate prices kind of stable. And I'm not interested in that. I want good returns. I mean, when I first started out, I was happy with making 5% rental income and a capital growth of like up to 5%. But as I go on in my life, I'm looking for better deals that are out there. And so I'm looking at different countries to look at. I'll give you a little tip. I'm looking at Colombia and Paraguay, in that part of the world at least. But I think for me, that's Panama. That's what my thoughts are. But I think it's great in terms of banking as well. Being able to go there and open a crypto account that I can put in crypto, take out fiat, and vice versa. Obviously, you've got capital thresholds. You can't put in too much amount, and you can't take out too much amount. But I don't really know any other places in the world that you can do such a thing. So I think that's fantastic as well. I think that's pretty much enough for today. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the other side.